individual and talking to them not as uneducated, because they have common sense, but if they don't see literature and they don't see candidates and they don't see organizations on the ground trying to talk to them, it's going to be a struggle. And I just want to touch just a bit on the Koch brothers, because the Koch brothers has basically taken the Karl Rove strategy on steroids. They recognize that they don't need all Latino voters and all African American voters. They just need the top voters. They just need to skim from the top. And that's why you're seeing such a strong investment by the Koch brothers talking about mass incarceration. Because they recognize that they need to start having conversations again so that they can continue building an agenda. And that's why you have them going through the Libre Initiative, going into local communities and handing out literally vouchers for families to go and pay for school, to get their driver's license, to do citizenship. From this side, and the work that we're trying to do, what we see is those resources on the progressive side drying up because they feel that the party is going to be able to take a lot of the weight in the water on behalf when it comes to the nuts and bolts, and that's just not going to happen. Not when you see other folks that are basically doubling down.
So I'd just like to comment on and just build on what Maria Teresa said. I think it's important to recognize that what's happening with the rising electorate, or whatever we want to call this panel, is creating a counter-reaction in the Republican Party. I mean, we have a party that on issues like immigration has moved right in every election cycle. I'll just speak about Asian Americans. So Asian Americans as a group actually have higher income than whites. In the 90s were 50-50 between Republicans and Democrats. Are now, actually in the 2012 election, we're the second highest voting group for Barack Obama after African Americans. And I'll tell you why I think that happened. I think it happened because if your party sends a message that Barack Obama was not born here, then you're not going to think someone named Sanjay Govill is American. And I think it's really important, and I think the message for all of us here is that the dignity interests are critically important to every single American, and they are also at stake in this election in which a Republican Party is using other Americans as honestly the whipping boy to win their primaries. And what's incumbent upon all of us in this room is to recognize that an attack on any group in the United States is an attack on all of us. And what is important to ensuring that we have and maintain this support amongst the emerging majority is to, for every single group, and this is something we focus a lot on at CAP Action and at CAP, to recognize that these assaults on any particular group, Latinos, African Americans, women, are an assault on all of us and our broad coalition. And I am actually proud of the progress that has been made over the last decade or so to move various coalition groups to recognize that we have a stake in all of us proceeding. But I think we should recognize that we live in a unique moment. We've been told by the pundits for years Republicans will compete for these voters. And I hear you about how much the Koch brothers are investing in Libre and others. We are as concerned about it as anyone else. But when they have the leader of their party attacking Latinos every single day, it's hard to argue that they're really competing. What they're doing is they're trying to ramp up voters in opposition. And we have to recognize that and fight it as a party.
I agree, and I think the most important, yes. I think there is a lot of opportunity here that we need to recognize. We need to understand among this coalition of citizens that there are shared values, and there is a certain set of issues and a certain narrative that they respond to, not only about their daily lives, but a certain set of moral principles, which is what we have just been discussing here. So those moral principles guide them in terms of their vision of an America. They don't want to live in a mean America. And that's what you're hearing now out of the other side. They don't want, and it is, it's a mean-spirited America. And so what we hope to do is to make sure that our message and our narrative about dealing with their lives and having a larger conversation around reform and a larger conversation around respect is very, very important to making sure that this coalition of voters is the majority of voters in 2016, and they can be. And that's a real opportunity that we must realize.
Anna, but I know there's going to be questions from the audience, so if you have a question, if you just raise your hand, I think we've got hand runners, but Anna.
Well, I just want to, I agree with everything that Paige said, and I think that one of the hallmarks of not just the RE, but millennials is a kind of a moral center around inclusion that is completely and utterly missing from the Republican Party. But I do think that we need to be a little bit careful. There really are a diverse set of issues economically for the RE. We're talking about 57% of the population, so obviously there's also diversity. And I want to flag something that we haven't talked about, but I think is really, really important. Just thinking about, for millennials in particular, their economic standing. We have a lot of economic policies that are hugely popular around equal pay, for example, or paid sick. But there's a particular issue that millennials face around college affordability, debt, and being able to figure out how they're going to have a future in this country. And so I think that one of the things that we can do as a party, and I don't think we've done enough of, and we can do a lot more, and I think that what Hillary Clinton's done in terms of talking about college affordability is incredibly important. But this is a very unique economic situation. This is a generation that thinks they're going to do worse and probably will do worse than their parents. And so I want to just flag that as a particular issue for millennials that I think as a party, and every focus group I do, I am amazed at how college affordability comes up spontaneously. And I just think it's an issue that if we can own and do something about, I think that's going to be really important for this group. So there are some internal differences that I think are important for us to note.
No, that's important. And so I don't know if we have somebody right here.
Hi.